The year was 2125. Earth had come a long way since the early space age. Colonies on Mars, the Moon, and even distant planets in the outer solar system were thriving. Technology had advanced far beyond what anyone had dreamed of just a century ago. But despite humanity's success, no one could have predicted what would happen next. It all began on a quiet morning. Earth's cities were bustling with activity, unaware that everything was about to change. At first, it was just a faint disturbance in the sky, a faint shimmer that most thought was a strange weather pattern or a passing asteroid. But within hours, the first ships appeared above Earth's atmosphere. Massive warships, sleek, dark, and towering, hovered in the sky, casting long shadows over entire cities. The ships were unlike anything humans had ever seen before. They were huge, like mountains in the sky, their surfaces glistening with an unknown technology. The ships didn't move at first. They just hovered in place, waiting. As the world watched, unsure of what to do, a strange signal began to broadcast on every news station, radio, and screen around the globe. A voice, cold and emotionless, echoed through the airwaves. To the people of Earth, the voice began. "We are the Androthian Empire, conquerors of thousands of worlds. You stand before us now, and we offer you a simple choice: pay tribute or face total annihilation." There was a long pause after the message. The entire planet seemed to hold its breath. People exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what was happening. Was this some kind of joke, a hoax? But no one was laughing. The message repeated: tribute or annihilation. The world's leaders scrambled to respond. Was this an attack? A diplomatic mission? Was Earth under threat? But the Androthians didn't give any clear answers. The message continued with demands for resources, technology, and even people. They wanted Earth's finest minds, its most valuable inventions, and vast amounts of its natural resources. As Earth's governments tried to figure out what to do, panic began to spread. No one knew anything about the Androthians. No one had ever heard of them. The ships were too large, their weapons too advanced. The human military was strong, but it was clear that Earth stood no chance against an empire that could send ships of that size across the stars. They had no idea how the Androthians had found Earth, or why they were making such a strange demand. In the United Nations building, leaders gathered in secret. The meeting was tense, filled with fear and uncertainty. President Emma Carrington, a determined and calm leader, stood at the front. "We need answers. What do we know about these aliens?" she asked. The experts were silent for a moment. No one had any real answers. One scientist, Dr. Alan Michaels, spoke up. "I've never seen anything like them. Their ships are clearly built with technology far beyond anything we have. If they're making demands like this, it's because they know we have no way of fighting back." Carrington nodded, deep in thought. "So what are we supposed to do? Just hand over everything they want?" "We don't have much of a choice," said General Marcus Lee, a veteran military strategist. "If we try to fight them, they'll wipe us out. Their weapons could destroy entire cities with a single strike. But if we comply—" His voice trailed off, and the room fell silent. Carrington's mind raced. The world's leaders were divided. Some wanted to negotiate, hoping to find a way to satisfy the Androthians and avoid conflict. Others wanted to fight, but how could they possibly win against such a powerful force? The answer was unclear, and time was running out. The ships in the sky hadn't moved, but the message had been clear. They had only a short time to decide. As the hours ticked by, Carrington met privately with her closest advisors. "We can't just give in to them. We can't let Earth fall under their control. We need to fight, but we need to be smart about it. We need to find a way to use our strengths." One of her advisors, a brilliant but unconventional scientist named Dr. Rachel Green, spoke up. "I've been studying some old, forgotten alien technology that we found during past space missions. It's not much, but it might be enough to give us an edge. if we can reverse engineer it and adapt it to our own systems. Carrington cut her off. We don't have time to build a whole new fleet of weapons, Rachel. We need something that can strike fast and hard. Green's eyes glinted with excitement. I think I have something, but it'll require all of humanity's resources. We'll need the full cooperation of every nation, every corporation, and every scientist on Earth. If we can build this, we can stand a chance. Carrington nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of the situation. Then we do it. We're not just going to roll over for them. Earth will fight, and we will show them that humanity doesn't surrender. As the meeting ended, the weight of the decision settled heavily on President Carrington's shoulders. Earth's fate had just been sealed. It was time for humanity to prove that they were not so easily defeated. The Androthians may have come to claim Earth, but they would soon learn that humans were not so easily conquered. The world was in chaos. President Emma Carrington sat in a darkened room at the United Nations, the weight of the world on her shoulders. News reports flooded in from every corner of Earth, each one more frightening than the last. The Androthian ships remained hovering over major cities, their presence unyielding, casting shadows over the planet. Time was running out, and no one knew what the Empire would do next. Carrington had just finished meeting with her closest advisors, military leaders, and top scientists. Their options were limited, and the choice between surrender and resistance seemed more dangerous by the hour. Yet, deep in her heart, she knew that surrender was not an option. She had seen the fear in the eyes of her people, but also the defiance. Humanity's spirit could not be crushed so easily. There must be another way, Carrington said, her voice firm as she turned to General Marcus Lee, the highest-ranking officer in Earth's defense forces. If we give them what they want, we will be enslaved. We cannot allow that. But if we fight, we could all die. What can we do? Lee stood silently for a moment, his mind racing. We may not have the firepower to match them directly, but Earth's greatest strength is its people. We've always adapted. We fight with creativity, with resourcefulness. We've survived against all odds before. Carrington nodded. I know. That's why I'm calling for a global council of resistance. We need the best minds from every nation, every corner of the world. We need to come together, not just as governments, but as humanity itself. The next day, world leaders gathered in a high-security facility, away from the prying eyes of the media. The room was packed with leaders, military officers, and scientists. They were all wearing the same expression, fear mixed with determination. Carrington stood at the front, her face calm, but her mind racing. We have one chance, she began, addressing the council. We can't fight them using conventional methods. Their technology is far beyond ours, but we are not powerless. Humanity has always been able to adapt to the impossible. We need to use our minds, our creativity, and most of all, our unity. The room was silent for a moment as the leaders exchanged uncertain glances. General Lee stepped forward. What we're suggesting isn't easy, but if we work together, we can create weapons, tools, and strategies that the Androthians haven't prepared for. We'll need every resource we have, every scientist, every engineer, and every soldier. We'll need all of Earth to come together. Carrington nodded. I agree, but this isn't just about military might. This is about ingenuity. The Androthians think they can intimidate us. They think we'll bend to their will. But we've shown time and again that we are not so easily defeated. I want everyone in this room to think beyond what's possible. The time for hesitation is over. We have to act now. A scientist named Dr. Rachel Green, who had been working on studying the alien technology found in past missions, stood up. She was younger than most of the council members, but her mind had proven to be one of Earth's sharpest. President Carrington, I've been working on something that might give us an edge. It's not finished, but if we can adapt what we've learned from the Androthians' technology, we might be able to create a weapon that can level the playing field. Everyone turned to her, interest piqued. Carrington raised an eyebrow. What kind of weapon? Green hesitated for a moment. I can't say for certain yet, but I believe we can reverse engineer their energy weapons and adapt them for our use. If we can harness the power they've been using to disable our satellites and disrupt communications, we might be able to build a device that can disable their ships. The room murmured with uncertainty, but Carrington's face lit up with a spark of hope. That's exactly what we need. If we can take out their ships, we'll have a chance. We just need to get to work. Right now. The council agreed. The plan was set into motion immediately. Every country on Earth was called to contribute. Some sent soldiers and engineers, while others offered their scientific expertise. The largest corporations began to work together, pooling resources to fund the research and development of new weapons. The world was united in a way it had never been before. Meanwhile, Earth's military forces prepared for the worst. The Androthian ships had not moved, but the tension was building. Every minute that passed felt like a countdown to disaster. The atmosphere was thick with fear, but also a new sense of purpose. Carrington met with Dr. Green again, this time in a lab filled with strange alien technology. "Do you think it's possible?" she asked, her voice low. Green nodded slowly, her hands running over the materials. "It's not going to be easy. We have to think outside the box. We need to adapt their technology in ways they never expected. But it's possible. We can't afford to fail." Carrington placed a hand on Green's shoulder. "We won't fail. Not this time." The world's resources were poured into the effort, and in the coming days, breakthroughs began to happen. Scientists worked day and night, engineers crafted new designs, and soldiers trained for the worst. The Androthian fleet remained in orbit, watching. But Earth was preparing to strike back. As Earth's resistance gathered strength, one thing became clear: humanity was not just going to sit back and wait for extinction. The Androthians might have underestimated Earth, but soon they would realize that the true strength of humanity lay in its ability to adapt, fight, and survive against all odds. The world was watching. News channels, social media feeds, and public announcements were all filled with the same terrifying message. The Androthians had arrived, and Earth's future hung in the balance. But President Emma Carrington wasn't about to let Earth go down without a fight. In every corner of the world, the people of Earth were rallying behind her, showing that no matter the threat, they would not go down easily. It had been a week since the Androthian fleet first appeared. The massive warships hovered silently above Earth's major cities, casting their long shadows over the planet. People were scared, uncertain about what was to come. Governments had been scrambling, debating, and planning, but now it was time for a decision. And Carrington knew that the world needed a strong, unified voice. With the clock ticking and the Androthian demands still unanswered, Carrington prepared to address the planet. The world's eyes were on her, and she had no intention of showing weakness. She had a message to send, not just to the Androthians, but to every human on Earth. This fight was far from over. The night before her speech, Carrington sat alone in her office, reviewing her notes. Outside the window, the lights of the city flickered as the calm before the storm seemed to settle in. She knew what she had to say. She would not beg. She would not plead. Humanity's message had to be one of strength and defiance. In the morning, Carrington stood before the cameras. Her face was calm, her posture straight, but inside, her heart raced. She had never felt the weight of the world on her shoulders more than she did now. But she had to be strong. The future of Earth depended on it. The cameras flashed, and she began her speech. "To the Androthian Empire and to every person on Earth who is watching this, I say this: we will not be intimidated. We will not bow to your demands. Earth will never submit to tyranny." Her words echoed through the airwaves and across every screen on the planet. As she spoke, her voice grew stronger, more confident. "You may have power, but you do not know us. You think you can threaten us into submission, but we will show you the true strength of humanity. We may be small in the grand scale of the universe, but we are mighty. We fight for our home. We fight for our future. Across the globe, people watched with rapt attention. In cities from New York to Beijing, from London to Sydney, humanity stood united in the face of the unknown. And in that moment, something incredible happened. Fear began to fade, replaced by a sense of pride, courage, and unity. Earth was not a helpless victim. It was a force to be reckoned with. Carrington's speech continued. You may have fleets that can destroy cities with a single strike, but we have something you cannot comprehend. The will to fight for our freedom. We will not give in. We will not hand over our people or our resources. We will fight, not because we want to, but because we must. As her words reached their peak, she made one final statement. To the Androthian Empire, I say this. You have one choice. Leave or face the consequences. We are prepared to stand and defend our planet. The choice is yours. The broadcast ended, but the impact of her words rippled across the globe. Social media exploded with support. #StandWithEarth was trending worldwide. People took to the streets in peaceful rallies, waving flags, holding signs that read, "We will not surrender." It was as if the entire planet had woken up from a nightmare and found its courage again. But while Earth rallied, the Androthian fleet did not respond immediately. Carrington had expected as much. The Androthians were calculating, and they would not make a move without considering their next steps carefully. The world held its breath, waiting to see how they would react to humanity's defiance. In the weeks that followed, humanity's resistance grew stronger. The newly formed Earth Defense Coalition, composed of military leaders, engineers, and scientists from across the globe, began to take shape. They were working tirelessly to implement the plan that had been set in motion, to develop the weapons and strategies that could turn the tide of the conflict. Dr. Rachel Green, the scientist who had been working on adapting Androthian technology, now had a team of the best minds on Earth helping her. They were making breakthroughs, though the clock was still ticking, and time was not on their side. Meanwhile, Carrington continued to lead the charge from the front. She visited military bases, scientific labs, and resistance centers, delivering speeches that echoed the same powerful message. Earth would not be conquered. The world began to rally behind her more and more. Leaders from all nations, once divided by politics, now worked together as one force. Every nation sent their best engineers, soldiers, and resources to the cause. But the Androthians were not idle. Zolthur, their leader, had watched the broadcast, and now he was preparing his next move. He had underestimated the human race before, but he would not make the same mistake again. Earth's defiance had surprised him, but it had also sparked his anger. The humans had made their choice, and now they would pay the price. On his command ship, Zolthur stood, watching the vast expanse of space through his viewing window. His thoughts were clear. Earth will regret this decision. And so, as the world prepared for battle, the stage was set. The final confrontation between Earth and the Androthian Empire was drawing near. The fate of humanity rested in the hands of its people, who now knew the true meaning of defiance. The tension between Earth and the Androthian Empire had reached a breaking point. Across the globe, preparations for war were underway. Military forces were mobilizing, research teams were pushing the limits of technology, and Earth's people had become more united than ever. Every day brought new developments, and the world held its breath, waiting for the inevitable. President Emma Carrington had made it clear, Earth would not bend to the Androthians. The entire world had heard her speech of defiance. But as the days passed, the Androthians still refused to respond. They lingered, silent in their ships above Earth's cities, watching and waiting. Carrington knew that time was not on their side. The longer the Androthians stayed in orbit, the more it became a game of waiting for the first move. She couldn't afford to wait any longer. Earth had to strike first. In the hidden underground facility where Earth's best minds were gathered, Dr. Rachel Green and her team worked tirelessly on the reverse-engineered Androthian technology. They had made tremendous progress. The energy weapons, which had once been a mysterious force used to disable Earth's satellites, were now being modified into a weapon that could target and disable the Androthian ships. But the work wasn't done yet. Every minute counted, and they needed more time to perfect it. "Dr. Green, we're almost there," said one of her lead engineers, Marcus Lai. "We just need another 24 hours. The weapon is nearly ready for testing." Green nodded, her brow furrowed with concentration. 24 hours might be too late. We can't afford to give the Androthians any more time. I suggest we move forward with a trial run. Even if it's not perfect, we have to try. Lai hesitated, glancing nervously at the device they had created. "But if we test it now?" "If we wait, it might be too late for all of us," Green interrupted. "The Androthians won't give us a second chance. We've been preparing for this moment for weeks. We're ready." With that, the decision was made. They would proceed with the test. The team quickly gathered in the control room, monitoring the weapons systems as Green issued the command. The weapon's powerful energy source hummed to life, its power coursing through the circuitry. Earth was about to make its first strike. Meanwhile, across the world, military forces were mobilizing. General Marcus Lee stood on the deck of a massive warship, overlooking the fleet that had been assembled. It was a sight to behold. Ships of all sizes, from small fighter jets to enormous battleships, prepared to carry out Earth's first offensive. The Androthians had vastly superior technology, but Earth had something they didn't: the element of surprise. Lee spoke into a communicator, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "All units, prepare for launch. We move as one. The time has come." Carrington was not far away, watching the situation unfold from her command center. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing on her shoulders. The world had united, but this was only the beginning. They could not afford to falter now. "This is it," Carrington whispered to herself. "Earth's fight for survival begins now." In the control room of the underground facility, Green's team initiated the first test of their weapon. The energy beam shot out in a brilliant flash of light, cutting through the sky like a thunderbolt. It struck a target high in Earth's orbit, an old satellite, repurposed for the test. The satellite exploded in a blinding burst, confirming that the weapon was functional. "It worked," Marcus Lai shouted. "The weapon's ready for use." Green allowed herself a brief smile, but her expression quickly turned serious. "It's not over yet. We need to deploy it, and we need to act fast." Carrington's voice crackled through their communication system. "The Androthians are preparing to respond. We don't have much time. Launch the weapon and coordinate with the military. Let's show them that humanity is not to be underestimated." The world held its breath as the first wave of Earth's forces moved into position. The Androthians remained silent, but their massive ships loomed over Earth's cities, a constant reminder of the power they wielded. Still, Earth's resolve was unshaken. The battle had only just begun. As Earth's fleet approached the Androthian vessels, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The Androthians had yet to make a move, but their presence was overwhelming. It was as though the very air had been charged with their dominance. But the people of Earth would not back down. In the skies above Earth, the first missile was launched. It soared toward the closest Androthian warship, a massive ship that appeared to be the flagship of the fleet. The missile was carrying the new energy weapon, and as it neared its target, Green's team activated the device. The weapon fired a concentrated blast of energy, striking the Androthian ship with incredible force. For a moment, the world watched in silence as the ship shimmered with the impact. Then, a shockwave spread outward as the ship's shields faltered, the blast hitting its core. The ship groaned under the impact, its energy systems flickering. Carrington's voice came through the communication system. "Direct hit. The Androthians are weakening." But the battle was far from over. The Androthians quickly retaliated, firing back with their advanced weaponry. Earth's fleet was ready, though. The fight had just begun, and it would be a long, hard struggle. But one thing was clear. Earth had struck the first blow. And for the first time, it felt like humanity might stand a chance. The first strike had been made, but the battle was far from over. Earth's forces had launched their attack, and the Androthian Empire had responded with swift and overwhelming force. The energy weapon that Earth had developed had struck a powerful blow, but it was clear that the Androthians were not going to back down easily. In the skies above, the battle raged on. The Androthian fleet was vast and powerful, its ships emitting deadly beams of energy, while Earth's fleet, though smaller, fought with fierce determination. General Marcus Lee watched the unfolding chaos on the battlefield, his eyes sharp as he gave orders to his fleet. "Stay in formation." Lee shouted through his communicator, "Keep your shields up and fire at their weak points. We can do this." Earth's fighters darted through the air, weaving in and out of fire as they targeted the Androthian warships. The battles were intense, the air crackling with the sound of weapons colliding. But despite their best efforts, Earth's forces were struggling to hold their ground. The Androthians had a clear advantage in terms of technology and firepower, their weapons cutting through Earth's defenses like a hot knife through butter. Carrington watched from her command center, her heart pounding in her chest. The first strike had been a success, but now the real challenge began. She knew that Earth couldn't win through sheer strength alone. Their only hope lay in strategy and resourcefulness. She couldn't afford to lose. "General Lee," Carrington spoke into the communicator, her voice steady. "We need a new strategy. Hold the line, but don't engage head-on unless absolutely necessary. We need to buy time for Dr. Green's team to finish the new weapon. We can't risk it being destroyed before it's fully ready." Lee's voice crackled through the line. "Understood, Madam President. We'll keep them occupied. But you need to get us that new weapon quickly. We don't have much time." Carrington turned to her aides, who were working tirelessly behind her. "Keep me updated on Dr. Green's progress. We need that weapon operational before the Androthians can regroup." Back in the underground facility, Dr. Green and her team worked around the clock to perfect the weapon. The initial test had been successful, but now they had to refine the technology. The pressure was mounting. The fate of Earth depended on their ability to get the weapon working at full capacity. Green was exhausted, but her determination drove her forward. "This isn't just about technology," she said to her team. "This is about survival. We can't afford to fail." Her team nodded in agreement, working quickly to adapt the energy weapon into a more powerful form, one that could disable the Androthian fleet once and for all. But even as they worked, the battle outside intensified. The Androthians were relentless, and Earth's forces were starting to show signs of wear. Hours passed. The sky above was filled with smoke and debris from the ongoing conflict. Earth's ships were taking hits, their shields weakening as the Androthians pressed forward. The people of Earth were doing everything they could to hold on, but it felt as though the scales were tipping in favor of the enemy. Then suddenly, a breakthrough came. Dr. Green and her team had completed the weapon's modifications. It was ready. "We've got it," Green exclaimed. "This version is far more powerful. If it works, it will disable their entire fleet." The team quickly prepared the weapon for deployment, knowing that the next few moments would be critical. The tension in the facility was thick as everyone held their breath, waiting to see if the weapon would work as intended. Back in the skies, General Lee had received the update. He immediately gave the order to move into position. The Earth fleet maneuvered into formation, creating a defensive perimeter around the launch site. They knew that this was their one chance to change the tide of battle. "Target the Androthian flagship," Lee commanded. "We need to take out their command ship." The ships moved into position, their cannons aimed at the massive Androthian flagship. But just as they prepared to fire, the Androthians launched a devastating counterattack, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts. Earth's ships dodged and weaved through the explosions, trying to avoid being hit. It was then that Carrington gave the final order. "Launch the weapon now." Dr. Green's team activated the new energy weapon. It hummed to life, its power surging through the system. The weapon fired a concentrated beam of energy that cut through space, heading directly for the Androthian flagship. It was a gamble, but it was the best shot Earth had. The beam struck the flagship with tremendous force, causing a massive explosion. The shockwave sent ripples through the battlefield. And for a moment, everything seemed to stop. The Androthian ship shuddered as its shields failed, and the entire ship seemed to destabilize. Carrington's voice came through the communicator. "We've done it. The flagship is down." A cheer erupted from Earth's fleet as the Androthians' command ship began to drift helplessly in space. The energy weapon had worked. It was a game changer. But the fight wasn't over. The Androthians weren't giving up that easily. Their remaining ships regrouped and prepared to retaliate with everything they had. Earth's forces, though battered, had made a significant blow, but they knew the war was far from won. General Lee's voice came through, calm and determined. "We've got them on the ropes, but they'll be back with more. Prepare for the next phase. Earth is not backing down." As the battle continued, one thing was clear. Earth had shown the Androthians that they were not just a small, defenseless planet. They had taken the first step toward victory. But the true test was yet to come. The battle for Earth had entered its most critical phase. The Androthians, though shaken by the destruction of their flagship, were not defeated. They regrouped quickly, their remaining warships re-establishing their formation in space. The shock of the loss had worn off, but now their anger burned brighter than ever. The stakes were higher, and the next move would decide the fate of Earth. In Earth's command center, President Emma Carrington stood with her arms crossed, watching the battle unfold on the large display screens. She had received reports from every front. The energy weapon had been a success, but now they had to stay ahead of the Androthians. The attack on the flagship had given Earth a brief moment of advantage, but the Androthian fleet was far from finished. "We can't afford another direct hit like that," Carrington said, her voice firm. "We need to draw them into our territory and use our environment to our advantage. Earth's terrain can be used against them." General Marcus Lee, who was overseeing the coordination of Earth's military forces, nodded in agreement. "We can't keep playing defense. The Androthians have superior weapons. We'll have to outsmart them, use the terrain and our resources." Lee turned to his team. "Prepare for Phase 2 of the plan. We'll lure them closer to the atmosphere, where their ship's energy shields will be less effective. The gravity will also be a challenge for them." The team moved into action, issuing commands to fleets across the globe. Earth's forces had just one shot at this. If they could get the Androthians to engage in Earth's atmosphere, it would tip the scales in their favor. The Androthian ships were enormous, heavily armored, and powerful, but the narrow atmosphere would restrict their movements. It was a dangerous tactic, but it was Earth's best chance. Meanwhile, in the underground facility, Dr. Rachel Green and her team had been working non-stop to refine the energy weapon. The new weapon was an undeniable success, but they knew that one shot wasn't enough. They had to find a way to maximize its potential. Green and her engineers were modifying the weapon to launch multiple shots in quick succession, with the aim of destabilizing entire sections of the Androthian fleet. "We've made progress," Green said, looking at the weapon's control systems. "But the next phase has to be even more powerful. The Androthians won't back down easily. We need to give Earth's forces a fighting chance." Her team worked tirelessly, perfecting the weapon's energy output and aiming system. But as the pressure mounted, Green couldn't shake the feeling that the Androthians might already be planning their next move. Time was running out, and Earth needed more firepower. Back in space, Earth's fleet was preparing for the next stage of the battle. As the Androthian warships neared Earth's atmosphere, they were met with the first phase of Earth's trap. A series of decoy ships, disguised as Earth's military forces, darted in and out of their path, drawing the Androthians toward the planet. The Androthians fired their energy weapons at the decoys, but their blasts missed. Earth's ships were swift, outmaneuvering the Androthian warships, drawing them in closer to Earth's atmosphere. The Androthian fleet pursued with a mix of impatience and anger, unwilling to lose their prey. General Lee watched as the ships neared the outer reaches of Earth's atmosphere. He gave the signal. Deploy the shield disruptors. From the surface of the planet, massive EMP weapons launched into space. These disruptors targeted the Androthian shields, causing them to flicker and weaken. The Androthian ships, once protected by their powerful energy fields, were now vulnerable to Earth's weapons. The Androthians were clearly frustrated. Their ships began to slow, unsure of how to proceed. They hadn't expected Earth to fight so hard. And now, they were realizing that the humans weren't as weak as they had first believed. Then, Carrington's voice rang through the command center. Prepare for the energy weapons' next phase. We need to disable their communication systems. If we can isolate them, they won't be able to regroup. Green's team activated the upgraded weapon, and it hummed with power. The team held their breath as they watched the screen. A beam of focused energy shot out, cutting through the weakened shields of the Androthian fleet. It struck the lid ship, and the impact was immediate. The Androthian warship shuddered, its communication systems disabled. The enemy was now scattered and vulnerable. "We've done it," Green exclaimed, but there was no time to celebrate. The battle was still in full swing, and the Androthians would not give up so easily. As Earth's forces pushed forward, the Androthians regrouped, launching a counterattack with all the firepower they had left. The skies above were filled with explosions as the two forces clashed in a final desperate struggle. But Earth's forces were relentless. General Lee led the charge, targeting the remaining Androthian warships with precision. Earth's fighter jets darted in and out of the battle, taking down enemy ships one by one. The EMP disruptors were still working, continuing to weaken the Androthians' energy shields. Carrington watched as Earth's fleet gained the upper hand. The Androthians, despite their superior technology, were no match for the strategic minds of Earth's military leaders. The Androthian ships, now isolated and disorganized, were falling one after another. Then, just as it seemed like Earth might win, the Androthians unleashed their final weapon. A massive energy pulse aimed directly at Earth's surface. The pulse was so powerful that it threatened to tear through the atmosphere and strike the planet's surface. It was a last-ditch effort, a desperate gamble. Carrington didn't hesitate. Activate the planetary defense system. Earth's global defense network engaged, a network of satellites and weapons designed to protect the planet from external threats. The energy pulse collided with Earth's shields, causing a violent explosion in the skies. The shockwave rattled buildings on the surface, but Earth's defenses held firm. As the dust settled, Carrington allowed herself a brief moment of hope. The Androthians had underestimated humanity once again. Earth had proven its strength, and the Androthian fleet was faltering. But Carrington knew that the final battle was still ahead. The Androthians wouldn't give up so easily, but neither would Earth. The final moments of the battle had arrived. Earth's forces, though battered and worn, had held their ground. The Androthian Empire, once so confident in their overwhelming power, now found themselves pushed to the brink of defeat. The Earth fleet, a patchwork of military forces from every nation, had proven itself resilient, intelligent, and capable of standing up to even the most formidable of foes. On the surface of Earth, President Emma Carrington stood at the command center, watching as the last remnants of the Androthian fleet attempted to regroup. Despite the chaos outside, she maintained her composure. She knew that the battle wasn't over until the last shot was fired. The Androthians were desperate now, and when an enemy is desperate, they become unpredictable. "We've weakened them," Carrington said, her voice calm but resolute. "But we can't stop until they're gone. Earth's future depends on this." General Marcus Lee, who had overseen every stage of the battle, nodded. "Our forces are in position. The remaining Androthian ships are regrouping on the far side of the moon. They'll be preparing to launch a final assault. We need to make sure they don't have the chance." Lee had been a steady leader throughout the conflict. Under his guidance, Earth's forces had not only held their own, but had struck back when it seemed like all hope was lost. Now the war was nearing its conclusion. The final confrontation would take place in the vacuum of space, far from Earth's surface, where the battlefield would be the last remnants of the Androthian fleet. Back at the underground facility, Dr. Rachel Green and her team worked quickly to finalize the next phase of their energy weapon. They had been monitoring the Androthians' movements and knew they would be making one last push to break through Earth's defenses. "We've modified the weapon to maximize its power," Green said, her fingers flying over the control panel. "If we fire this next shot, it should be enough to take down the remaining ships once and for all." Her team nodded, eager but tense. This weapon had become humanity's last hope. If it failed, the Androthians would have a chance to regroup and counterattack. But if it succeeded, Earth would win. Green took a deep breath and issued the command. "Activate the weapon." The room fell silent as the powerful energy weapon hummed to life. The air crackled with the immense energy as the weapon's beam gathered strength. It was a split-second moment, but for everyone involved, it felt like a lifetime. Outside, the Androthian fleet had been maneuvering into position. Their ships, though diminished, were still formidable. The Androthians had one final card to play, a massive energy cannon capable of destroying anything in its path. They were hoping that a direct hit on Earth's surface would force humanity to surrender. It was a risky move, but they were running out of options. "Fire," Carrington ordered, her voice unwavering. The weapon on Earth's surface fired with a brilliant flash of light, a powerful energy beam streaking through space toward the Androthian fleet. The beam cut through the emptiness, a symbol of Earth's final stand. It struck the first Androthian ship, and there was a moment of silence before the ship exploded into a fiery burst. The remaining Androthian ships tried to move away, but the beam was faster. One by one, the ships fell. The Androthian fleet was no longer a threat. Earth had won. But the victory came at a cost. The energy weapon had drained Earth's resources, and the remaining ships in Earth's fleet were badly damaged. The battle had taken everything from them. General Lee, watching the destruction of the Androthian ships, knew that Earth had come to the edge of its limits. "We did it," Lee said quietly. "We actually did it." Carrington closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself a brief moment of relief. They had done it. Earth had proven that it was not to be underestimated. The Androthians, despite their superior technology and might, had been outsmarted and outmatched by humanity's resilience and ingenuity. Green's voice came over the communication system. "The weapon has done its job, but we'll need time to recover. There's a lot of damage, but we're alive. That's what matters," Carrington replied, a faint smile crossing her face. "We're alive, and Earth will rebuild." As the last of the Androthian ships drifted into space, the people of Earth stood victorious. It had been a long and difficult battle, but they had not only defended their planet, they had proven that they could stand up to anyone, no matter how powerful. The world began to move forward, united by the shared experience of surviving against impossible odds. Earth's forces, though battered, began the task of cleaning up the debris, rebuilding, and preparing for the next steps. The Androthian Empire had been stopped, but the war had changed everything. Humanity would never be the same. President Carrington stood at the front of the command center, watching the stars twinkle in the distance. She knew the battle was won, but there were still questions. The war had been a reminder that the universe was vast and filled with dangers. But Earth had proven its strength. It had stood firm in the face of annihilation and emerged victorious. Carrington turned to her team. "We've made history today, but we're just getting started. The future is ours to build." The people of Earth had learned a valuable lesson. Unity, determination, and ingenuity could overcome even the most powerful of adversaries. The Androthian Empire had underestimated humanity, and they would never make that mistake again.